Most families do not need more capital, they need more clarity. Over the years, I've seen families build extraordinary businesses and wealth only to struggle later, not because of markets, but because expectations were never clearly defined. That is where a family constitution comes in. So, today I want to walk you through five core elements that every family constitution should include and why this document is less about rules and more about long term stewardship. Of course, there's a lot more, and we can go into a lot more details. For context, my background spans across commercial lending, risk management, operating businesses of real estate assets, and performing board advisory work with families and their family enterprises. So, from that vantage point, I can say this. A family constitution is not a legal document. It is a governance framework designed to reduce risk, preserve relationships, and support continuity across generations. Purpose, values, and shared intent is the first element that any constitution should have. Before families debate ownership, control, capital allocations, they must first align on why the family enterprise exists in the first place. This includes the family's shared purpose, the core values that guide decisions, long term intent for the enterprise and capital, such as the mission and vision. Without this anchor, governance becomes mechanical, and without it, difficult decisions have context. This becomes a reference point when emotions run high or there is misalignment. Number two, and the second important element, is clarity around family participation. This is one of the most common sources of friction that I see, especially as the family grows large over the years. A constitution clearly should address this point. Who works and can work in the business and under what conditions, define expectations for performance, compensation, accountability, provide distinction between being a family member, an owner, and an operator. This is not about exclusion, but about fairness, professionalism, and protecting both the business and the family. Number three, out of the 5 points that I would like to add, is governance structure. Families often assume that governance is intuitive and trust based. It is not. It's important to have trust, but that governance section should outline the role of the board, the function of the family councils or committees, define clear decision rights and escalation paths. And in operating businesses, this prevents founder bottlenecks and role confusion. In family offices, it reduces reactive decision making and unmanaged risk. Clarity here is a form of risk mitigation. Number four is capital, liquidity, and risk philosophy. This fourth element is very often overlooked, yet capital and risk philosophy are very important. Families should explicitly discuss their risk tolerance and downside protection priorities and systems, liquidity expectations and constraints, how capital will be allocated across the operating businesses, existing and future investments, and their philanthropic efforts. From a lending and risk perspective, ambiguity in this zone is dangerous. When risk tolerance is not aligned, families often discover it during periods of duress and when choices may be limited. Number five is succession, next gen readiness, and evolution. This element is particularly important for continuity and not necessarily naming successors prematurely, but it's about preparing the system. This section should address leadership development and education, entry and exit pathways for next gen members, how and when the Constitution itself will be reviewed and updated. Strong families treat governance as a living system and not a static document. So, if there is one message I want to leave you with, it is this: a family constitution is not about control. It is about reducing uncertainty before it becomes conflict. Families who invest in this work early preserve optionality, trust, and long term resilience. So, if this conversation is helpful, I invite you to subscribe to Family Enterprise Perspectives for ongoing discussions on governance, risk, stewardship, and next gen transitions. Share one element you believe is most critical in the family constitution in the comments below. And if you'd like to continue the conversation more personally, feel free to connect with me one on one. I appreciate you and thank you for spending a few minutes with me today.